Welcome to It Was All a Dream official podcast. I am your host, Ashley Greggins, and we are on episode 12. Today's guest is Adam Corkhill. He is the Retail Communications Manager for Greggs. Now, this episode I thought was going to be a little bit of a battle between self-employment and employment, but actually this is going to be so valuable for business owners to listen to a point of view of an employer. To hear someone speak so passionately about his job and the culture Greggs created, it was such an eye-opener, and I know you're going to enjoy it. Hi, Ad.
Hiya.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Welcome to the It Was All a Dream official podcast.
Thanks.
How's your day? How's you been?
Good, yeah, fine. A little bit nervous today, but fine.
A lot of people say that they're nervous, and then honestly, a few seconds in, they're like, oh no, it's fine. It's literally a conversation.
Yeah, it's chatting to your best mate for an hour,
Well,
so you can't...
It actually is chatting to your best mates with this one.
You can't turn it down.
No.
It might be the only time we actually get to spend a quality hour together without anybody else. So,
For such a long time, it probably is. So, the reason why I asked you to come onto the pod, Ad, is because you're so passionate about your work. You're 15 years, we're going to get to it and we're going to talk about it, but 15 years working for a company. I just really wanted to, I love the contrast of self-employment to employment, and you're someone that I genuinely believe is that passionate and is that driven as I am for another company. But before we get into all that and stuff, just give us a little lowdown, tell us about yourself, where you're from, just for people that don't know yet.
So from Liverpool, but was born in not a screen, really rough part of Liverpool, and then moved to like to say Club Moor, because it's definitely where it should be classed as, but yeah, Club Moor, around the corner from Youve, and yeah, probably lived there for, well, I think we moved when I was probably about 11 to Club Moor, and then lived there until I think I was 24. Mm-hmm. And then we'll come on to it, but I moved down to Devon for 3.5 years, so I'm sure we'll cover that. And then moved back up after COVID.
He did. And he's recently just bought a house, which he's actually just forgot to mention.
Yeah, did forget to mention that.
Yeah, so he will be moving again.
Moving up to Newcastle now, so from one extreme to another, from the deep southwest of England all the way up to the northeast. Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of a contrast, but I just need to get me into Cope.
So what about when you were younger and stuff? Because obviously I'm assuming you've only ever worked for Greggs. I'm assuming we haven't even introduced that, but that's the company. So I'm assuming that's the only place you've ever worked. It's been that many years.
So it was the very first place I worked, and probably within the first 6 months of working there, I don't know, I always had this passion, not a passion, I'd say, just a bit of an obsession with clothes shops. Mm-hmm. And I always thought people that worked, because I was only 16, but I always thought that people who worked in clothes shops Next or River Island had these great jobs, because they sold really nice clothes, very immature, clearly. So I applied for a Christmas temp job in River Island, done that for, I think it was just short of 3 months. And then when we got into January, I remember them saying, if you go on to the rota upstairs, you'll find out whether you've been kept on or not. That was literally it. And then I went upstairs, just started my shift, and then see me name weren't on the rota. So I was see you later, just walked out on the shift.
Absolutely. I mean, they could have picked better time.
I know.
What if you were just stormed out?
Yeah, but it was probably the best thing that ever happened.
What age was that?
16.
Yeah. You know what though? How disheartening for a 16-year-old is that whole process. If your name's not on the list, you don't get a...
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's definitely the contrast of the difference of even that just 2.5 months experience in comparison to where I work now, where culture is just such a big part of it and so different to that 2.5 month experience.
Yeah, so that literally made me think of that. You're just a number. That's kind of, obviously there it's probably Christmas temp and whatever, so it's just there. But hopefully, I'm not too sure, but hopefully that has changed and that wouldn't be allowed anymore, because that is brutal.
Yeah,
that is brutal for a 16-year-old.
Definitely.
So you have literally climbed up the ladder, and I'm going to let you say exactly what. But you are now the communications manager. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you've started. So this is where we are now, and then just Climb me up that ladder.
Well, it's been a long time, so it's 15 years. Like, it was 15 years last month, July. So it started as a weekend Saturday kid in Old Swan, like suburban area of Liverpool. Ran the corner from where we live, really. And I remember I'd left school, finished my GCSEs, and like expected to do quite well, and then which it did. And then I just needed some money for that summer. Started at Greg's, just seeing the advert. I don't even think it was online. Like, that's how long ago it was.
No, it wouldn't have been. Probably in the local Echo.
Probably, yeah. Or like the Luth.
Yeah.
So found that, applied, was successful. And then I was going back to school to do A-levels. I was doing business management. That was my absolute passion. And then, shortly after that, went back. Just wasn't the same experience. Like, when you go back to sixth form, after being so, regimented throughout school, then you can't give in this new lease of life where it's up to you whether you turn up to lessons. Like, no one is going to tell you what to do. I kind of missed being told what to do a little bit. It was just such a culture shock. And then obviously got used to like a bit of money in my pocket. And then, you know how the story goes, you end up kind of sacking off school, don't you? So that's what happened. So by the December of that year, I'd left sixth form. I don't think my mum and dad were very happy with me.
I was literally just thinking that now. Obviously, we know it was a fantastic decision, and you know the career that you've had and still are having. But I'm almost certain that when you say I'm leaving school and I'm going to work for Greg's full time, I'm sure there was a bit of discussion going on in that. Household.
Maybe a bit of raised voices, I'd say. But yeah, so then I left school, carried on in work. And I was getting like more and more hours as time was going on. So like back in the day, it was like really hard to get like a higher contract when I first started working for Greg's, because there just wasn't that many vacancies. No one used to leave. It was a really good business to work for, and he paid like well above the minimum wage as well. So like the money was great.
They're very known for the generosity of the company.
Yeah, definitely. We get looked after, and then so I just ended up kind of slowly climbing up the ladder. Within like a year and a half or 2 years, I was like a senior team member, which is like a little bit more responsible than just a normal team member.
Yeah. And what age is this? But it's still not early 20s, aren't we?
No, probably not even there yet. Probably like 19, maybe.
Yeah.
So I was always quite mature anyway, I think. So I always had that.
Unless it's a weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless it's a weekend. Unless it's a Saturday night with our mates. But yeah, and then shortly after that, I think it was a couple of years, I was an assistant manager after that. So literally moved from like loads of different shops, and then found myself working towards like the city centre, which is like starting in Old Swan in a suburban shop, then going into a really fast-paced city centre. It's just a completely different ball game, like the amount of customers and footfall and stuff like that. So, felt really comfortable in that environment and just really enjoyed the fast pace of it. And then, I think I was a shop manager by, I'm going to say 21, maybe.
That's phenomenal, honestly. I hope that you give yourself credit for that, because that is just that step from that. I mean, I personally know you, so I know the strengths and know what they've seen in you to obviously get there. But one thing that is just screaming to me is just loyalty. Like, as a business owner and as someone who employs, like, that loyalty that you've given them is just unbelievable. Like, is there a reason for that? Is there something about Greg's and about them as a company that you've absolutely spent 15 years building your career with?
Yeah, it's the people, to be honest. Like, you can have any business, can't you? But if the people aren't nice or the culture's not right, then there's always just something missing, isn't there? And I've always had great people that I've worked with, like colleagues, line managers, people that have worked in my team. Everyone's just been brilliant along the way, and it's very, very rare that I've come into contact with someone who probably isn't a great person. And that culture, there's something about it that you just can't really put your finger on, but you just feel relaxed, comfortable. you feel like your voice is heard when you've got something to say, you're respected. It's just a really great place to work.
Yeah, no, it sounds like, I don't know, I do know obviously a lot about it as a company wise, like, wow, do you know what I mean? But even just, I just know, like, it sounds to me like people are happy to work there, people are appreciated, people are respected there, which is, you know, it just sounds like whatever they are doing higher up obviously relays back down, and it's a nice environment. But for you managing people, you've obviously got to have that, you know, approachability for them people. So let's talk a little bit about managing people, because managing people for me is something I struggle with, and eventually we'll have to get a manager because it's not something but I've seen you obviously are brilliant at it.
I've always kind of had a team really, from like earlier than being 21. So, and I've always loved working with people and being involved in just spending time with people, whether it be groups of friends, like colleagues, family. I'm always at my best when I'm around somebody else. So I think that probably come natural. Luckily for me, I think I don't want to sit and like tell everyone like what I'm really good at, but
well, that is what you're here for. So
no, I know, but I think I connect with people quite easily. I think just that friendly approach, but also like sometimes you have to have difficult conversations as a line manager. You have to make difficult decisions, but as long as you can like always think that if you're making the right decision, you're having those conversations, you're making the decisions for the right reasons, then you'd always feel quite comfortable in that situation, as uncomfortable as that may be, which sounds really strange. But I think sometimes it's always okay to be uncomfortable in them situations because they're not natural. But yeah, I think people really respect like a friendly approach. And people say like, you know, you have to have a distance between you and your team. Well, actually, you don't. If your team respect you, you know, you don't have to be best mates with them, but you want to be able to connect with people. You want to engage people. You want to motivate people. And I think if you haven't got them skills to really tap into them as a person, then it's quite difficult being a line manager.
I think it is that balance, isn't it, in between, you know, being friendly and stuff, but being respected enough that when the friendly has gone too over, there's then boundaries of, well, you are the owner, you are the manager, you are, which that is what I struggle with because I am just so kind.
I think it's the communication, which is the biggest piece as well. So like, you know, like you say, boundaries is a real important thing in those relationships, well, in any relationship, isn't it? But I think if you've got really clear boundaries where people know what to expect from you, then you're very open about it. And, you know, if someone does step out of line and you're stepping in and having that conversation very quickly, people know where they can go with you and then they respect you. And generally it's easy and natural when you're in that place.
Talk to me about your job role now, because your job role is communications manager. Is that correct? I've got that title correct.
Yeah, so it's officially retail communications manager, but yeah.
So tell me about it. What is your day-to-day job role now? What is the communication side of the job role?
It's just so different to what I've done before. So like after being a shop manager, I went through the area manager role, which was like looking after like a big group of shops, like 20 to 25, and being responsible for all of those people. And then I'm being out in the field. And then this role is very like central. So it's like head office role, which is very different. But the element of being around people in the same environment every day I quite like, because you're close to people that you see all the time. Sometimes when you're out in the field, it can be quite lonely because you've got a brilliant bond and a relationship with your team and stuff, but it's quite difficult because you don't see them that often to continue that. So this role on a day-to-day basis is more supporting those people out in shops and like communicating different things of what we're doing in the business to them to help them do the job first of all, and then to engage people as well. So it's very, very different, and you get involved in all kinds of different things. So it can be so random sometimes. So like, you know, there might be an issue in a big supply site, which means the shop teams might not get a delivery, which impacts customers. So we have to kind of make sure that our shop teams are armed with the right information to be able to do the job to serve the customers. And even recently, all the protests and riots and stuff like that, like someone's got to give our teams guidance for some of those things, which, thinking about a role like this, you think you wouldn't get involved in any of that, but it is so different on a day-to-day basis. And just like you're a huge part of moving the business on, because all the things that we plan to do and want to do and the things that are really strategic that are going to move the business forward, we can't do without a communications team, because we have to tell people about it. We have to engage people in it. And because I've always kind of had that people strength and always like being around people, engaging them. I think it's just something that I love. And I've only done it for a year and a half, but it's just been probably the best year and a half so far.
You really explained that so well. I've never honestly really understood the levels of owning a company that big. You know what I mean? Like, to me now, I'm like a community, like the levels of actually what they have to put in place just for that. So, because if you think of the UK, it's one of the first things people will name UK. They will say Greggs.
Yeah.
They will absolutely say Greggs. I don't know whether I'm going to put you on the spot here or not now, but do you know how long it's been going? It's been actually open for?
I think it was in the 1950s or 40s.
Wow.
And just last week we celebrated 40 years on the London Stock Exchange of being a PLC. So it's like
huge,
it's quite
huge.
big. And just to give you some context, my role's about communicating to retail. So there's 2,500 shops at the moment. Plans to grow that to way over 3,000. There's 34,000 colleagues, and out of that, there's probably just under 30,000 that are retail only. So all of them are the people that I talk to or the team talk to on a daily basis.
I mean, you needed to be a people's person, didn't you?
Yeah, it's and meeting all of their needs as well. That people read things differently. People might be more visual. They might want to hear things, or they might want to watch a video. So you have to really think about all the different approaches that are going to meet all of those people's needs. So it can be quite daunting sometimes, but you just can't think too much into it and get into it.
So we talked touched on it a little bit earlier, but it actually took you. It was the role before you were in now. It actually took you to move out of Liverpool, didn't it? So. What was the reason that you moved up to? It was Plymouth, wasn't it? You got to move to.
Yeah, so I moved to Plymouth in Devon. So I always kind of wanted to be an area manager, and going back, I think it was 2017. I wanted to be an area manager, but there was no roles going at the time. People had been in roles for a really long time, the area manager population anyway, and the amount of shops that each area manager had was. The business wanted to move that up. So anytime anyone would leave, they would increase other people's shops around them, so that there probably wouldn't have been a vacancy. So a vacancy came up that was in Plymouth. So I applied for it, but I'd already got my head around it. I knew that I was going to have to move away from home to get what I wanted. So such a huge step, and it's not round the corner. It's 6 hours away from home. I mean,
I know, I've driven there a few times.
But I think getting there though, I was kind of in the mindset that I would have to move away, because, like you say, all the reasons of roles not being available, but it was the third area manager role that I was successful for. So it wasn't easy. I applied for the 3 different roles in different locations. The first 2 I weren't successful, but the third I was. So by the time I built up all that experience of the interview of just having a little bit more time and a little bit more commercial knowledge about what's going on outside of the business I worked in, and thinking about the wider perspective of other retailers, other food-to-go retailers and the industry and stuff like that, you just get to learn more. So just put you in a better position when you do go for that. So it was the 3rd time. So moved to Plymouth and was there for, I think it was just under 4 years all in all.
Talk to me about, because obviously you've explained to us, and people you like to be around, people you like to be around, your family you like to be, just talk to me a little bit about the sacrifice of your career and then obviously putting it away from your comfort zone, because that's basically what you've done. So, you know, you were so determined for your career, you knew it was the right step, but you knew it was going to be something you would struggle with because you're such a people person. Like, was you lonely up there? And
yeah, it was quite lonely, to be honest. At first it was anyway, and then when I was moving after the first 6 months, I moved into I went on Spare Room, if you've ever heard of that, and basically it's for like students normally, where they're looking for a student house after like halls and stuff like that. So there's loads of people that are offering rooms out in a, like maybe shared house, a little bit like that, but on a more permanent, yeah. So I seen this advert for like this like kind of new build. Just one lad living there, and he was lovely. When I had a viewing for the house, met him. He had a dog as well, which then encouraged me a little bit later to get my own. So yeah, once I moved in with Charles, like it was just brilliant. It made me feel a little bit less lonely, I would say, but I still really miss my friends. And 6 hours away means that it's a completely different culture. Like
exactly,
the people are so different. I mean, Liverpool people, Scousers are just different to everyone, aren't we? Let's be honest.
With our own breed.
Yeah, we are, absolutely. But it was quite lonely, and not seeing my family all the time was quite lonely. But I think, do you know what? It made me make a conscious effort of making the time to go and see people, which I feel like there's some people that I probably see more living in Plymouth than I do living in Liverpool now. So,
yeah.
And also like ringing my mum every day. Whereas when I'm away now, I don't ring my mum every day because I know I'm coming home at some point where I'm able to see her. So yeah, I think you just make sure that you make time for people.
Yeah. Talk about that culture change. So because from going to obviously a manager, working with like Scousers and then working with people down south and that, like it must have been challenging to actually, get the difference of cultures and personalities and stuff. I can imagine Scousers to be quite feisty and, need a lot of managing.
Yeah.
So was there like a culture change, or is it just working with people, you get that anyway because everyone's different?
It definitely took me a while to adjust. I remember moving and thinking, oh my God, like, because I think when I moved that area, so the business hadn't really moved that far southwest. So part of my role as, just other than the day-to-day was like developing the business down there and opening more shops in areas that we've never had before. So people didn't really know Greggs, as surprising as that is. Like you wouldn't believe that now. But at that time, people really, really didn't know the business, whereas we're really established mainly up north and further up. So people didn't really understand the pace of it. So I absolutely took definitely a few wrong approaches with some of the scenarios. There's definitely loads of learning that happened throughout that time, but it was just so different because it's in Devon especially and Cornwall. I ended up opening the first shop in the business in Cornwall as well, which was that exciting. It's a very slow pace of life, different culture. Whereas like Scouser walks in being the new area manager and talking 3,000 miles an hour, it took some adjustment for them. But I think once you start to just understand people a little bit more, slow down, start to understand what their needs are as well as yours, like within 6 months, like they were my people.
Understood
yeah,
each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's understood each other. So I'm just, honestly, and me sitting here now as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, and obviously I normally sit here, you are our first employed guest, but me sitting here now, it shocked me because I did never think that an employee could be as passionate as driven. I don't know why I've never put that together. I always just assumed you work for someone, you're a little bit miserable. Like I always just assumed that. So it's such a good contrast. But yeah, like what do you think about that? Like, is it that case of like there isn't like I will work for someone else? Do you feel like you are just as driven and like you are so passionate because the company is so good for you to work in?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things in there. I think the first bit is there's a lot of misinformation out there, isn't there, in terms of like, you'd only have to go on TikTok now and Instagram and it's all about being an entrepreneur and being self-employed, and that's brilliant. I love that for everyone, and like I'm so proud of you. But it's not for everyone, and I think like as much as I'd love to be self-employed, I just love what I do now. And I think there's so many benefits. Well, it's like anything. There's so many pros and cons to everything, isn't there? But I think the other thing is that, when you work for a business that's got such a good culture, you feel like it's yours anyway.
Because you've got responsibility that it is yours. Honestly, you've got more probably responsibility than I feel like I have in some aspects of my business. But I'm so glad that you've touched on that, and I think we're going to go back to it because it is so important and it's so refreshing to hear. Actually, there is a lot on TikTok now about the grind, and what the saying actually says is, work on your dream or you'll end up working for someone else's dream and stuff like that. So it's so good to hear that actually, no, you know what, I do work and I'm so happy, and this was my career path, and there isn't like a doubt in my mind that I wanted to go grinding for somebody else and work for someone
definitely.
else.
And it's a massive misconception that that stereotype of the slog and the 9 to 5, and you see people in London, don't you, in the stereotypical videos getting on the tube, going to work, miserable, pissing down weather.
You actually do see all
that is exactly what you see, don't you? And it's not like that at all. And interestingly enough, because I knew that I'd be the first person that's employed by a business, I looked up online to see what percentage of people were employed by businesses, were self-employed. So there's 74% that are employed by a UK business, 13 that are self-employed. So considering we're all drowned with those videos on social media,
there's not a lot of us.
There's not a lot. Although when you put the UK is 60 million people, that 13% is obviously a lot of people, but it's not a majority.
No, it's really not. And there can't be that many miserable people out there.
No, definitely not. I mean, most of the people I work with are always happy as well. So it's definitely a misconception.
And it's the holiday pay. I mean, you cannot, forget that bit. I'm actually going on a 10-day holiday now, and I literally will not make any money for 10 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the one with Ross. Ross will be sitting on that beach and he will be making money. So there's always that as well. Do you find yourself to be quite an ambitious person? Is that something that you would say you was at?
Yeah, I definitely think I'm ambitious. I think another misconception really is that people think that when you use the word ambitious, people think that you are someone who will climb and stamp on everybody else to get where you want to go. I've certainly experienced that when people describe someone else as ambitious. Sometimes it can be in a negative way, but actually it's not a negative word. And it's really good to be ambitious, but not about anybody else. It's about yourself and wanting to better yourself and progress and want to do really well. And I think I've always had that, from being in school. It sounds really cheesy, but sometimes I enjoy a pat on the back.
Yes, we all do.
People are so afraid to say that, but I think when you're managing someone or even speaking to your line manager, I think if you need a pat on the back, sometimes you need to be do you know what? Just letting you know, I need to pat on the back now and again, just a little thumbs up, a little bit of confirmation that I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing okay, and that'll spur me on.
Yeah, that's such a good conversation to have, because sometimes as the boss, I actually had to check myself. I think it was Ella had worked for me for a few 6 months, and it was loads of it was so hard for her to just, okay, this is how I run the business now. You know what I mean? And I remember going have you told her she's doing a good job? And I remember, I'm sure I had, but I couldn't actually think of that. So now I'm literally, every time she leaves, thank you for your hard day's work, thank you. And it's genuine, it's not because it's false, but I think sometimes that's so it is important to show, and I feel that's why people that you are managing, they feel appreciated, and if you feel appreciated in a job role, you generally just work harder. This week's episode is sponsored by Cosmetology with Elegance, affordable skincare, high-end ingredients. We'll link the website below. Let's get back to the episode. Right, so I always like to go a little bit deep. Obviously, I know you and I know you inside out. But do you know what? Actually, just sitting here like this now, when do you have conversations like this? I think it's so therapeutic, and it's also really like, if anybody's watching, you just need to catch up with your mates on a deeper level. Like, there's not to sit in that conversations, but you're like, this is just, I'm absolutely made up that you've come on the podcast, he had absolutely no other option of coming on it. But what I would like to say to you it's a question, is if you was to tell your past self something, what would you say as?
Like, this is probably a question that I've been asked like a few times, like over the years and stuff, and obviously each time you'd answer it probably differently depending on the experience that you've had in the few years before and obviously earlier than that. And this probably sounds a bit cheesy, but I just tell myself not to worry so much and just to continue doing what you're doing. Like, I had such a good time in my 20s and even in my teens, even in school. I just had such a good time, still having a good time now, and been able to, progress and do well. I think sometimes when people are asked that question, you hear something that they want to change or do better or a regret. Yeah. And I just think that, you know what, like the regrets or the things that you didn't do so well at is the person that you are today, and that's what's made you that person. So yeah, I just think, like, if there was something to say to myself years ago, I'd say just continue having a ball.
Yeah, just don't deep it. Don't
think too much.
Yeah, I know we're giggling at it because I know what the ball is, so that's what we're giggling at. But as you were just saying that, then it did make me realise that, like, you did get it right somewhere down there, didn't you? Because you had that balance of. See, now we're in our 30s now, so like the nights out and stuff like that are few and far, and that's absolutely fine because we absolutely, had a ball in our 20s. But somewhere in your 20s, you got to be this manager in your 30s, so you must have had it right somewhere. You must have had that nice balance of going out, having a ball, and then also being driven enough to get to where you are today. So it probably would be good advice, but you probably already had that. It was probably already going on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like in my 20s and stuff, like, yeah, probably did do something right. There was definitely loads of nights out that I absolutely had FOMO over, where I couldn't go out, and I was in work on a Sunday morning. Like, I remember working in city centre. I had a big shop in the city centre, and it was on North John Street. So, like, I used to park on Pall Mall just outside city centre, and I'd walk in. And like the shift that I was on, if it was on in the morning, it was super early, so I'd walk in on a Sunday morning, and like the nightclubs would still be bouncing, people would still be coming out of like G-Bar and going back in and stuff, and I'm just like walking to work with my bag, like storming, just so I can get out of this scenario.
Also, so you didn't bump into anyone.
Yeah, or like, do I look like one of these people when I'm out on a night out? So probably did do something right. But yeah, I think it's just making sure that you say yes enough to enjoy yourself, but also say no to be able to like just chip away at the long term, I think.
Yeah, it is that long term, isn't it? It's not, and it doesn't just, for that only our younger viewers. I've had Liv on a couple of weeks ago. She was early 20s, and she started career. She was so career driven, and people would look at me and think that maybe in my 20s I was like grinding. It was the opposite. It was the absolute opposite. I got into me late 20s and started it and stuff like that, and you do have to have that fun. Like, you absolutely do have to have that fun. You can be driven and you can be passionate, and now that's not as fun to me anymore, to be honest with you. So that's not what I class as fun anymore, but it's probably because I did have just an absolute ball in my 20s. So, both career, like, driven people, don't be too hard on yourself. Like, go and see your mates of the weekend, go on them holidays, like, do that, experience that, because you can still be successful in your 30s and later on early 20s. You can be successful, but you can still have a ball, can't you, Dad?
You absolutely can. I think, that saying, like, play harder, work harder, play harder. There's definitely a place for that, but I'm telling you now, as you get into your late 20s and you get into your early 30s, not so much.
It's harder.
Not so much, yeah. definitely not so much.
It is. It's even harder. What would you say if I was to just put you on the spot now and say what is one of the personal strengths? What is a personal strength that you'd say you've got? Not even career, just a personal strength.
I'll always find something to laugh at. Yeah. Like, it's never, I mean, I can have deep chats with you like this and, you know, with other people and stuff, but like, there's always something that I'm laughing at. I mean, I think like how many times I must laugh a day, and I think I just love having fun.
Yeah, and it's infectious, that's the words. Infectious as well as laughing. Then he's just said that that is so true. He's always the little joker. Adam's one of the friends that give you that one-line jokes, like the one little line jokes, and he just does his increases, just laughing.
But you know what happens though? Like, I'll shout the one line out, but I'll do it quietly, or I'll tell one of yous, and then one of yous then rob it and shout it louder like it's your own joke, and I think, oh, it's happened again.
That actually always happens.
Nina's probably a culprit for that.
Oh, she really is. Right, so going back to work and stuff like that, what is one day that, like, maybe just one situation, or what is something that you've had to really overcome, something that you found really hard and you've had to overcome that?
I mean, there's probably loads really over the years, isn't there? But I think the thing that always probably sticks out for me, and I still have to remind myself on, you know, I wouldn't say regular basis, but now and again it creeps back in, is like imposter syndrome. I think sometimes, like, you know, as confident as I am, sometimes I'll find myself in scenarios where I might be in a meeting sometimes where there's directors in there, or, you know, come across the CEO, or, like, you know, that can sometimes be on a weekly basis sometimes. And sometimes I'll think whether I'm worthy enough to be in that room, or is my voice as good as anybody else's. And I think you always experience an element of that when you go into like that next level role. And I think when you're in that vulnerable state about when you learn and things, and you know that you're not at your best within that role because you're still learning, and that's absolutely natural. No one expects you to be, but you expect yourself to be. And when you've got that imposter syndrome, you know that you're capable of it, but you just question yourself over and over. And I think one of the real good ways that I've learned to deal with that is asking people on the spot for feedback. And sometimes, if a meeting will finish early, I'll just maybe, even like, you know, directors and stuff like that, I'll just say, could I just keep you back for 2 minutes? Like, how did it come across then? Or what did you think of, like, the slides that I've designed or shared? And because I feel comfortable enough to do that, because that's the culture of my workplace.
I wouldn't be comfortable to do that.
Yeah.
I would absolutely go to bits over that. So that is I was honestly just about to ask you, if someone's feeling this, what is a tip that you can give them? And that has just blew my mind, because that is such a good tip. It is such a good tip.
But I think the other thing is, as well, is don't just ask for feedback for the sake of asking feedback. Like, you've got to go away and do something with it, and whether that's like a piece of work that you're doing, or you know, it's a piece of personal feedback for you. I think you've got to make sure that you're coming across like authentic, that you're going to go away and do something about it, and you actually care about it, and you're not using that as a piece of making your ego feel better. That's another thing I think that is another misconception about people asking for feedback. But to be fair, it's probably not a misconception, because that's the majority of people probably do that.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I ask for feedback actually enough. Maybe I should. I think that's really good. I think it's really useful.
Yeah.
Because it is. The only thing is probably with me is I would get disheartened and take it to heart. So how do you take that from, okay, that was constructive criticism, to, oh, that really hurts? Because it would really hurt me.
No, just like last week or a couple of weeks ago, I asked for feedback at some point. And you know, sometimes you don't like what you hear, and sometimes, I'll be honest, it's like taking a bullet, right? But you sleep on it, the next day you are a different person, and it's just almost like you take it in, it hurts a little bit, and then you just move on. It's like, so it's that resilience, I think, that is really important.
Character building as well, isn't it? So it builds, it makes you a better person because you take the feedback, but also you're a better person because you've learned how to take feedback without taking it to heart.
I mean, I've, like, some of the chats that I've had is like, when I've wanted to progress into that next level role, I've spent time, I always make sure that I spend time with other people all the time, have shared time. And it's not for, for wanting to get something from them. It's more just building relationships and sharing thoughts and getting to know what other people think around the business. And like, when I'm in those scenarios, sometimes it's really good to ask the question, if you're wanting to progress into another role, or there's something else that you want to do, like, ask them, this is something that I want to do, or where I want to get to. Do you see me as getting to that? And just be that directive, and
so it plants the seed as well, doesn't it? If that's something that they didn't pick on 1 minute, then they go, I didn't think they was interested in
exactly. And it just puts you in their thinking, first of all, and then if they say no, like, or sometimes they don't say no, they might not want to be as directive as you asking the question, but I think you can ask it in a roundabout way of, what else, is there anything that you think that I should be getting on with now before something comes up, so I can get myself in the best position possible? Like, is there anything that you'd advise, like, from the experience that you've had with me so far? So I think it's, just asking.
Yeah. Let me flip that then, and let me flip it the other way. As a manager, as a managerial position, you've got someone who is giving you them questions, asking for that feedback. If that is something that you feel like possibly is going to hurt the feelings, or even worse, discourage them, how are you approaching that conversation in that way? How is it, and obviously you've got to keep it like professional, but is the, certain things that you would like try to soften the blow? Or?
I think there's probably, like, I've been on loads of, like, development courses over the years, and that's probably helped me to get to where I am. And oh my God, I'm no means perfect. I make mistakes every day, and if you ask my team, I probably make mistakes every day and stuff, like, and I'll happily tell anyone about that. But I think, in answer to your question, like, coaching's probably a big thing that comes into it. So you have to plant seeds sometimes, I think, and help people get to where they need to be. But I think one of the big things is, like, self-awareness, isn't it? And if you're someone who is self-aware, then you've got that thought somewhere in your mind. It might not be on top of your mind all the time, but you're able to just pull that out and ask them what they think first of all, rather than you having to tell them, you're not quite ready for that role. Or I think it's just pulling that information out of them by asking questions, like,
a bit of reverse psychology.
A little bit.
Like, you thought it, I didn't.
A little bit of that, but it's from a good place, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
And just helping them get to where they need to be by thinking, really. So there's lots of different techniques.
Yeah, let's talk about a bit of motivation, because obviously, as in your role, you've got to obviously have people like motivate people and stuff. So is there ever a time, or is there ever like a situation that you can think of where you've been able to say this person would be super good at this, but they just didn't have that motivation? Is there anything that you would be able to, like, give people like a tip of, how to motivate employees?
Yeah, I think generally, again, I keep saying misconceptions, like a little bit of a buzzword in this podcast, isn't it? But a big misconception is that when people don't want to progress, they think they're not motivated. But actually, there's, probably 30, 40, maybe even 50% of people that I've kind of worked with and experienced that do a really solid job and do it really well, but actually have just got no desire to progress because it might suit the flexible working that they have, or they can work from home a little bit, work in the office, or work from home full time potentially. So it might suit them, or they might have other commitments outside of work and stuff like that. So I think that's a big misconception of people. If they don't want to progress, then they're not motivated.
Okay, that's really interesting.
So that's a big part of it. But then I think by telling people that they are good and making them feel worthy as well is a big part of motivating people. Celebrating success is such a huge part of it as well. Like, there's not better when your manager says, "Oh, like that's such a good piece of work. Like, well done for getting that over the line." And just celebrating it every chance that you get, and making sure that you don't miss those opportunities as well. Because I think you can be so focused on your own workload sometimes that you forget what your team are doing sometimes. And I think by making sure you've got that open communication where you're checking in all the time, and you've got that one-to-one quality time where your phone's not going off, your laptop's not pinging, you've got to just make sure you're spending that time with that person.
Celebrating success is what I've just took from that, and celebrating success is definitely what Greg's done. The last figure that I pulled up from their bonuses is 17.6 million in bonuses. Like, what does that mean to the employees?
So, like, every year we share 10% of the business profits across all the employees. So, last year, in that example, there was 176 million pound profit. So again, that's why the 10% is that figure, and that gets shared. So there's always a buzz around like March time when people know that it's coming out. So we're waiting for the trading update for the full year. It's so exciting, and everyone's just in such a good mood. It's like March time is just brilliant, and I think because we do so well, like continuously, and it's challenging times out there, and I think like those figures, like any other retailer or food-to-go retailer would dream of having the figures that we pull in and the growth that we have on a regular basis. But it just makes people feel proud because we're all part of pulling in every single penny of that ourselves. So it feels like everything that we do, is to drive our profit share every year, which is personal to us, obviously, but it's more about what we do as a team together to like really push it on. So bonus is brilliant, but what does it actually mean? It's the culture behind it, and it's the team that like do that, and we all do it together. And every year we sit in an annual conference and we talk about it and we share performance. And when you see some of the highlights, like every time I just get goosebumps, and it's something that I probably think that not a lot of people feel about a business. But so passionate, and
it's just honestly the excitement of them numbers, and it's so, I can imagine obviously like the higher ups, the fact that people are trying to drive them numbers and trying to get to that numbers. It's just the overall, like as I'm just sitting here and listening to you, I honestly thought we were going to have this conversation. It was going to be a little bit of a battle between self-employment, employment and stuff. I thought it was going to be a little bit of thing, and I really, really, I'm going to put it into the intro that actually business owners need to listen to this podcast, because what you've taught me and what I'm taking from this is actually, the managing side of it and the culture side of it, and listening to an employee. Listen, I've took so many tips, but I've gone like, well, I want to be like that. I want my business to be like that. So I've really enjoyed actually listening to you in that way, because there's loads of things that I've been like, wow, what a company, what a company. Is there anything more that you want to fit into it and stuff like that, or can we get down to the fun?
Let's get down to the fun.
Okay, what are we doing for fun?
God, it's changed over the years, like it does for anyone. Your priorities change, doesn't it? Don't be. So I think if you'd have asked me that 10 years ago, if the answer was, then it would have been pub every Friday, Saturday.
It's actually funny because it's a Friday night, and 5 years ago we'd have been finishing this and going to the pub at the end of the road, and the two of us have got work.
So I think fun these days is spending quality time with people around me, doing random different things. So going to see a play, or going to pictures, love a good film, good Netflix series on a day where it's absolutely bouncing down outside and you can just get a throw, get on the couch, chill out. taking the dog for really long walks where you just can't forget that you've got anything else to do in the day. That's a real big thing for me, I think, especially this summer. I just kind of made the most of it, and just getting as far away as possible. Like, I love going to like reservoirs and stuff with the dog and going for really long walks, hikes and stuff. Not that often. I wish I could do it more often, but the weekends just go by too quick and there's so many things to do. But and then spending time with like your partner and family and stuff like that as well. So
we've chilled, haven't we?
We have absolutely chilled, but I still do love a good party.
It does.
Like, I must sound like I'm getting old here, but like, let me give you some reassurance, it's still in there. And do you know what I love as well is that I drag it out in you as well.
This is not. So you know when you have that one friend, like there's like if you get me and Adam and you get us both in that nice bit, we're like, okay, we're going like, we go for it. Like, me and Adam have done a lot of holidays, just us two. We are actually due one. If we call it like the wifey and hubby holiday, we are actually due one. And I promise you, the fuck it Ashleys that you heard about in the intro, this guy is the one that gets it out of me. Because
so
he is, and he only has to give me this look, and I'm like, you're going to be good tomorrow.
That is what I like to do for fun.
yeah, it is. It's hard, isn't it? We were actually discussing like earlier on in the year, just saying like how now it is just so different. Like the next day, the hangovers and stuff are so different. And when you are such a determined person and you are so busy and stuff, it's the few and far. But I do think it's really important. I mean, I'm due one, and I think this is why I'm talking like this. I feel like I've got a bit of phone.
You would talk so differently, and it was like, if it was last weekend, this conversation would be so different.
I honestly say that I'm stopping drinking alcohol every single time I do have a fucking day, but I think I am due a fucking day, but I have got my holiday coming up.
Yeah.
Because that's also another thing you like to do is travel as well.
Love holidays, love travelling as well, didn't mention that, but I think I just don't do it that often. I wish I could a little bit more, but
I think that's your 40s, 50s. That's my kind of. I'm started working in seasons. I actually mentioned it in the pod before, and I was like, what I've started to do, it was a TikTok, by the way, is you work in seasons. So you've got, instead of thinking like you've got to do all this in one thing, like this is my working girl season. This is it. I'm smashing my career, but it doesn't mean that I'm always going to do that. I'm going to have a season where I'm going to be like, you know what, I've got a little bit of money at the side of me. I'm going to go on a few holidays. That's going to be my seasons. I think it's easier to get it that way.
I would love to have a big map on one of me like walls in the house and just like dot everywhere that I've been, and then like make sure that I've done every continent in the world. And that's something that I'll definitely do later on in life.
Where's the best place you've been up to now?
I'd probably say Thailand, you know. Koh Tao, one of the Koh Islands, is just so special. Like going scuba diving and just seeing like all the tails in the sea and stuff like that. Like they're actually that big, and you think they're that big like before you see them. But just things like that, and getting a nice villa where you can just see out for miles on the sea. That's my favourite thing ever.
I can see that for you in the future. I think you're buying a home era, you're in your, working era, smashing your goals, because you have definitely smashed it. I hope that you are very proud of yourself, because as a friend, I've always been proud of you. I've always known that you've been smashing and stuff. What I always hear about these bonuses, I don't get bonuses. And Adam and our friend Ben, they always talk about these bonuses, and when I hear the numbers, I'm like, how do they pull numbers like that? How did they get it? But I hope that you're very proud of yourself for someone so young and to have climbed the ladder so high in a corporate company, in a big company. You should be very proud, and I am sure that they are so lucky to have you, that we know that they are.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this.
No,
it's literally made me think different about. This has not gone any way that I thought it was going to go.
Me, that I thought I was going to really struggle on this, but it's just been.
You're very inspirational.
Your best mate, so
But you are very inspirational. You are, and I'm so glad that we've had that contrast of employment, self-improvement. And by the way, I might go and get a job.